Hi there VC, it's Steve Whitty here again with another video, Sunday morning. I hope everything is well with you and you've had a good weekend so far. I see from some of the Instagram posts that some of you have had a good weekend hunting, and various Facebook posts as well. So here goes, another video as I said. This sort of follows up from the video I posted Wednesday on the Going Solo, where Wednesday's video concentrated on artists mainly from North America and Canada. This video is really, again, going solo, but this is going to focus on UK artists. Excuse me, now I've got a bit of itch on the nose. So, without further ado, really, in fact, let's have a slurp of tea before. As I said, without further ado, let's show the albums. Not as many as there were on Wednesday, but first album. This is Tanika Tikaram's Ancient Hearts. This was her debut album. Now, Tanika Tikaram sort of exploded on the scene in 1988, I think, when this album came out. And for the single, which is the lead track of the album, Good Tradition, which is sort of like a folky with the fiddle violin that's on there. But what was stood out was she got very deep voice, a very and that sort of added to the songs a little bit. And then her follow-up was something absolutely remarkable called Twisting My Sobriety, which is the opening track on side 2. This album really, I really enjoy this album. It's a surprising listen. This is an album that you'll find in the cheap bins across the UK. And I just thought, you know what, I'll take the plunge. I mean, this is in excellent condition. As soon as she sort of appeared, she sort of disappeared. I think she has made other albums. I'm pretty sure she has, but she was never as successful again. And to be honest, I have difficulty actually seeing other records by her. But if you do come and stumble across it, it's worth having a listen. So that's Tanika Tikaram's Ancient Heart album. In reality, I could have done this video just on one guy because I've been listening to one artist a lot recently, and that's because I've been lucky in finding quite a few of his albums at a reasonable price. So, start off, it's Van Morrison. Suddenly hit a bit of a Van Morrison kick. I've got some of his albums, obviously. Got Astral Weeks, Feed and Fleece, Tupelo Honey. But there was quite a bit I hadn't got. And Moondance was one out of such album, so I managed to pick this up. This is a German reissue, I think a mid-70s reissue. Stone Me, Moondance, Crazy Love, Come Running, Brand New Day. Yeah, this is just one of his best albums. During the early 70s, he was on such a creative flow, writing some great albums. And this, all the way from Astral Weeks, probably up to Feed and Fleece, I would say. There's some really peerless albums there. This is one of them. This is a must-have in anybody's collection. St Dominic's Preview found this. This is in the US pressing. There you go. Warner Brothers. Great record. Again, hang on. It comes with this little program. On here, it's the opening track, Jackie Wilson Says, which Dexys Midnight Runners covered on the Tour IA album. Gypsy, Listen to the Line I love particularly. It's a Dominic's Preview. again, another great album. It's one album I was looking for actually because I got it on CD somewhere, and yeah, um, just great voice. Where all his influences were, but took him to a new level, particularly on these albums. Um, However, when it got to Veed and Fleece, it got a bit of a critical mauling, um, and in a way, he disappeared for 2.5 years to 3 years, and he came back in '77 with this album. This is a period of transition, and in a way, it probably was. He'd maybe gone away to lick his wounds a little bit. Veed and Fleece was critically mauled, and I think he took it. I don't think he took it personally, but he in a way, he stopped. Didn't do it. Doesn't do any of the songs from that album. So he come back, and with a period of transition. This would be his last album for Warner Brothers. He got Dr. John to co-produce it with him, and he played. Dr. John plays the keyboards, and he even plays guitar on the track "It Fills You Up." I think what he's trying to create a on here sort of like a New Orleans sound, but it just gets a little bit mixed up a little bit. It was critically panned. I think they were critics were expecting something really great after 3 years away, and you can tell really from the photos there. It's a great cover. It's just reflection. It just seems be in reflection, and we all know Van Morrison can be a difficult soul. But yeah, it's not a bad album. It's not there with his best. '78, he followed it up with Wavelength. Now this would be his first. Oh no, this is his last album. Let me go round. This is his last album for Warner Brothers. Apologies for that. This is more an attempt to be more sort of poppy. I'm not to say poppy, but up with the times, pop rock. It was very commercial sounding, and but didn't really do that well. And again, critically, the reviews were mixed on this album. Yeah, it's again not bad. It's still good. I think he's still on a roll. And I enjoyed listening to this actually. I only got it for a couple of pounds. It was well worth having. And 1979, this is his first album for Phonogram, Mercury, into music. And this is 1979. This is my first introduction to Van Morrison. Was the opening track, Bright Side of the Road. Very upbeat album. It's a very positive sounding album. Bright Side of the Road, as I've mentioned, you got tracks like Troubadours, You Make Me Feel So Free, and The Healing's Begun, and he does It's All in the Game. What they're writing about. I enjoy this. This is quite a really good album. Again, well worth picking up. As I said, a very positive sounding album. I found a copy of this album, Van Morrison's Inarticulate Speech of the Heart. Now, if you remember back that I showed some albums with no covers, this was one of them. So again, but this was only a couple of quid to find an album with a cover, and a sort of complete collection. His sound in the 80s was starting to change. There's a period where his sound had changed, and it's produced and directed by Van Morrison. Maybe he's just going up a little bit above himself. Oops. But it's still actually quite a good album. So I won't talk too much about this because I've mentioned this in the albums that no covers. Apart from the fact it's in a way, I think he's sort of surrounding himself with musicians that he knew, and I think the title track splits it into two, and I think it's actually not a bad album. It's not up there with his best. I think a much better album actually is this. This is Van Morrison's A Sense of Wonder. Rare enough to find. There is if you look hard enough, there's a photo of Van smiling. This I do like. Not quite sure about the look. I did enjoy this album probably a lot. Tore Down, Alla Rimbold, Ancient of Days, Evening Meditation, The Master's Eyes, What Would I Do, Sense of Wonder, Bonnie Flo and Spike, If You Only Knew, Let the Slave, and that incorporates The Price of Experience, New Kind of Man. Again, produced and directed by Van Morrison. But this is certainly a much better album, much complete album in my ears for Van Morrison. And when I thought I'd finished with finding Van Morrison, I managed to find this, and this is an unofficial compilation, as it's stated, of his Bang record, of his output released on Bang Records. This is where I came in. It came out in 1977, so maybe just fill a gap. Obviously, Bang Records, it's the best known track for them. Brown Eyed Girl, which always seems to pop up now in 60s compilations, but people forget in the UK it did nothing. He couldn't. His career when he left them did nothing. It was only because it was a hit in America and gets used in films and whatever, gets played on the radio a lot. Got Madam George on here. This is actually quite a surprising, enjoyable listen. I didn't know what to expect, to be quite honest. Not really hearing any of his pre-Astral Weeks product. So yeah, it's worth seeking out. As I say, it is an unofficial comp. I think Bang Records had obviously kept the rights to those songs, so they could do what they see fit and release them whenever. You'll have to excuse me, I've got a bit of a bunged up nose. Oh well. Now I've finished all my Van Morrison listens. Moving on to another artist, John Martin. This is his Imperious Solid Air album. I'd had it on CD for a while, but to find a copy on vinyl. So the title track, you've got May You Never, which seems to be quoted as probably people's favourite song by him. I'd Rather Be the Devil, Over the Hill, Don't Want to Know. Go Down Easy, Dreams by the Sea, Man in the Station, Easy Blues, all the other tracks, and the stellar lineup he's got playing on here. And obviously Danny Thompson was, as well as his bass player, was his drinking buddy. Rabbit Bundrick was on piano, Dave Mattox, Fairport Convention on drums, Dave Pegg on Fairport Convention on drums. And Richard Thompson and Simon Nicol also appear on this album as well. This is just I'm probably using this word too much, a masterpiece of an album, a must-have album. He followed it up with Inside Out, which came out in 73 as well. And Pete at the shop pointed me out to this. Now, he's got an original in the shop which was £40. It's a bit above my league. This is a reissue. 80s reissue, you can tell by the Island label there. And still plays great. And it just follows on. It's not as good as Solid Air, but it's worth having. Some beautiful songs on here. Um, you've got Fine Lines, a traditional Irish song. If Bill Grail Curin Ni Clebal. Apologies if I ruined that. I'm getting this touch of Steve Carson's here. Ain't No Saint, Outside In, Glory of Love, Lucky Beverly, which I assume was to his then wife. Make No Mistake, Ways to Try, So Much in Love with You. Again, Danny Thompson's on here. Steve Winwood appears on here. Chris Wood's on here. Bobby Keys appears on this album as well. Again, I would put, if you see this album, I definitely recommend you pick it up. One of the great might have beens, Terry Reid, the man who turned down Jimmy Page for Led Zeppelin, but did point him in the direction of Robert Plant. This is called Silver White Light, and it's on the Music for Pleasure label. And this is just a rehash of his debut album. And I can't, for the life of me, forgotten the name, what the album was. It's the Music for Pleasure label. His debut album was produced by Mickey Most, who at that time was probably one of the top producers. Probably, it could be argued second to George Martin at that point. He does. You can tell why there's such a thing about him. Why Jimmy Page was so infatuated. Why people really like Terry Reid. Great voice, such a great voice on here. Silver Lungs, My Silver Girl, Silver White Light, July, Marking Time, Stay With Me Baby, version of that. Highway 61 Revisited, Stroke Friends, Mayfly, Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace, Rich Kid Blues. This is, this only costs a couple of quid. I've seen this go for about 10. Some of his albums are very rare to find, but this is a good way of just dipping your toe and finding some Terry Reid. Worth picking up. Almost there. Played this on Thursday. This is two originals of Linda Lewis. It's a twofer, and the two albums are, if I get this right, look, Lark, which came out in 1972, and if I can read this, Fathoms Deep, which came out the following year, 1973, both on the linked to on the Reprise label. Linda Lewis is an East End girl, East End of London, phenomenal singer, but rather got drifted off into the more popular end. But these two albums are worth having, and absolutely wonderful albums. How can I best describe her? You can imagine Minnie Riperton. I think that's when I listened to this, who I ended up comparing her with. It's very guitar based, sort of like singer-songwriter of that time. But she's got a terrific vocal range. On Lark, you've got her first hit single, which is Rock-a-Doodle-Doo, which, in a way, she starts off in a deep voice and then she goes into a high-pitched sort of like pop. Both of these albums were produced by Jim Cragen, who was her then husband, and if you didn't know, he was in Family, played with Steve Hartley and Cockney Rebel, and then ended up in Rod Stewart's band at the end of the 70s. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. The shame for Linda Lewis was that she got her biggest hit was a version of the "It's in His Kiss" Ship Ship song, and she in the end got drifted all towards disco in a way, and in a way she hasn't released a record in 20 years. So I was just looking at her, and it just seems a shame. She got lost. I remember listening to an interview with her and Danny Baker. She was on his radio show, and it's got to be about 3 or 4 years ago. No, it's got to be about 5 or 6 years ago. I just got the feeling she sounded a little, not bitter, but disappointed how her career had gone. I mean, she still sings and performs, but deserves a reappraisal in my opinion. Final 3 albums I'm going to show is by the same artist, and I suspect people over side of the Atlantic are not going to know who I'm on about. If you're of a certain age on this side of the Atlantic, you'll remember this guy. This is Jake Fakhri, and I could best describe him. His vocal style, he was from Yorkshire. He was a folk musician, but I think he must have gone to Paris because he come back and he was heavily influenced by the singing style, chansonnerie, I think, style of French singers, particularly Georges Bresson. And he took this into his songs. A lot of humour in these songs. Fakhri got from Yorkshire. He sang with a Yorkshire voice, but his voice could go on a different tangent, so it could go like that. Doing him injustice there. And he became popular. He appeared on television shows. Initially, a thing called the Braden Week, which was like a consumer type program in the late 60s, which morphed into a program called That's Life, and he appeared a lot on the television in the early 70s. On here, he only made 4 solo albums. This is his second solo album, studio album, sorry. And just some great songs. The problem he had, though, this is a good example of it. This is his third album, studio album, Bantam Cock. It was very steeped in innuendo, and which was fine in the 70s, but when it got into the 80s, his career waned basically, and sadly, Fakhri went on to he slipped into drink problems, became an alcoholic, and he pretty much gave up performing. The only thing, he was a Roman Catholic, very strict Roman Catholic, and he ended up just performing religious tunes. He passed away Christmas Eve 2002. This album's great. Best track on here, Sister Josephine, which is a song about which implies a criminal on the run who's escaped into a convict and dressed as a nun, and took the name Sister Josephine. And the final album I'm going to show is the final studio album that Fakhri put out, On and On Again. And I've really left this to last because the title track, On and On Again, has an example of probably one of the great opening lines that's ever been written. I love a good bum on a woman, it makes my day. You can't get better one of the great opening lines of a song. Jake Fakhri, if you see it, give it a listen. If you haven't, if you're not aware of it, just go on Spotify or wherever. I'm sure there's a best of floating around that you could have a listen to. It's an acquired listen, but he is one of the, I think, Britain's great lost voices. So VC, that is the records I'm going to show you today. I think this video has dragged on a lot longer than I'd anticipated. So if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, click on the subscribe button. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Love the interaction. Feel free to comment. I will get back to you. I'm off today to a Christmas fete over in Balmere. Lights have been switched on. It's that time of year. So whatever you guys get up to this Sunday, make sure it's a good one. Take care of yourselves. Keep spinning. More importantly, keep smiling.